This hangout is live. Konnichiwa, bitches. Welcome to the final edition of the Ultimate Man's League podcast before the draft, which is on Saturday, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Count them 4 days away. Joining me, as usual, is Connor Hemian. Connor, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. I'm just enjoying my beverage with a bendy straw. I know you on the West Coast can't afford these anymore, but back here on the East Coast, we have some freedom.
Nice. Yeah, we have to ask people at our brewery, by the way, now if they want a straw, which is ridiculous. Yeah. All right. So we have a good show for you today. We're going to cover some news, get into some potential trades. We'd like to draft and then go over some team needs with some best possible draft scenarios for those teams. Like I mentioned before the podcast, if you would like to ask a question, we always encourage that. And if you do, you will get one lottery entry into a lottery that I'm going to do to determine who gets the first state of the franchise after the draft. So basically a draft breakdown, draft grade podcast devoted to your team. So ask those questions. Kevin, yours does not count. Pat and Carlos, even though yours was before the podcast started, yours do count. So, Connor, why don't we go ahead and get started with the news? Big news coming out this week is that the Redskins signed future Hall of Fame running back Adrian Peterson. What kind of role do you expect him to have, and does this completely destroy all the other running backs' value?
It reminds me of New Orleans, that's for sure. We saw what he did to Kamara's value. Not that there is a Kamara on that team anymore with guys out for the season, but it just makes it that much muddier. I assume maybe P. Ryan has a bit more of an injury than they're leading on to, but I think he's going to be back. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. So to have Rob Kelly, Samaje, and Peterson in the backfield, that's just going to be a total mess with a lot of people that aren't a good value in PPR to begin with because they're all just kind of nitty-gritty runners.
Mm-hmm. Where does Adrian Peterson get drafted, or should he get drafted on Saturday?
I think he definitely should be drafted by the name appeal, unfortunately, probably mostly, but I think he will get carries. Rob Kelly he's a quality player, but he's very easy to surpass on the depth chart. And we've seen Adrian Peterson have a 100-yard game last season. And I think he's capable of doing that again under the right circumstances. I would play him. I would probably say he's probably the best left a waiver pickup, but a late round pick on him, you could play him on certain matchups during out the season. If it has somebody with a bad run defense, he could really capitalize on it and have a big play potential.
Yeah, he's the type of guy that probably ought to be a workhorse type running back. You don't want to. We saw it like you said last year in New Orleans. You don't want to give him 6 carries a game. Mm-hmm. He needs to be your only running back on first and second down. I'm not crazy about the fit. I feel like they had similar players. Like they brought in Jamal Charles. They brought in Orleans Darkwa. Jamal Charles might have been a better fit. I mean, who knows what he looked like when they brought him in for the workout, or if they even brought him in for a workout. But overall, I'm not sure about Adrian Peterson. He may not even be on the week 1 roster at this point. So
yeah, that's also true.
But we're not going to know before Saturday. So if you think Adrian Peterson might have one more left in the tank, I mean, Frank Gore is still playing at a reasonably high level. Whatever you think of Adrian Peterson, he's been in the league 2 fewer years than Frank Gore, and peak Adrian Peterson was much better than peak Frank Gore. Moving on past that, big news, not so much news, but rumors in the NFL right now swirling around Jets quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. It's been 2 full calendar years since that horrible knee injury he suffered in training camp back in Minnesota. He's looked great in preseason. He's looked like his arm strength's even improved. He's accurate. He looks like he's not really feeling that knee injury. What kind of trade value could the Jets expect to get in return for him? And will he be fantasy relevant this year or next year?
I'd love to see him go to maybe like a Denver. If Case Keenum doesn't work out in this first couple of weeks, I think Bridgewater could really revive his career there. I'm a big Bridgewater fan. I'd love to see him succeed. At the same rate, if maybe Josh Allen isn't totally ready for the Bills, I'd hate to see him go to Buffalo. But either way, I think it's going to cost for what the Jets want. I don't see them giving up less than, or you'd have to give up at least a third round pick. I feel like they're really, really trying to sell him at a high value, which probably means he's not going to get traded. But I really hope he does, because they're not going to use him. It seems very apparent. They're either going to throw out Sam Darnold instantly, or they've still got what's his name there,
Josh McCown.
Josh McCown, that they're probably going to use anyway. So it's just a waste of talent on their bench. I really hope he gets out of there.
Yeah, he's a tricky player to trade because he is on a 1-year contract right now. But if he gets any playing time and plays well, this is a guy that you could see maybe, I don't know, some bum team that doesn't have a quarterback like the Jaguars, like they might not feel great about their quarterback situation heading into next year. If Blake Bortles doesn't look good, they could trade for him. That's a situation that I would like to see Teddy Bridgewater. He's also like a caretaker type quarterback, or at least he has been in the past, which is kind of what they need. Just don't turn the ball over. Let Jalen Ramsey go win the game for you.
Mm-hmm.
But Teddy Bridgewater, as far as UML goes, kind of similar to Nick Foles. If you want to throw a late pick on him, go ahead. But I wouldn't expect pretty much any predictable level of fantasy production this season.
It'd take a lot to happen. But if he were to start waiver wire wise, halfway through the season, if he finds that niche and suddenly is playing, he's a guy to grab. I think he's
it's like a 17th round pick this year, or like a 6th round pick next year, if he's the starter wherever he goes.
Yep.
And we don't know that for sure. Panthers rookie wide receiver DJ Moore was pulled over and given a ticket for going 113 miles an hour in a 65 mile an hour zone at 3:00 in the morning through a work zone. A lot more information still needs to shake out, but what does this do for his draft value on Saturday? Do you draft him where you were anyway and hope it shakes out to be nothing? Or do you maybe if you were thinking about taking Calvin Ridley over him, maybe you definitely take Calvin Ridley over him now? How does it affect his value?
I think it's definitely a gut check. You got to kind of go with your gut on how you feel. This is something that could be resolved the day after the draft, and we find out that there's nothing to worry about whatsoever. Or it could be, a steep suspend, or maybe a couple game suspension, which definitely makes Calvin Ridley suddenly jump ahead DJ Moore. That could be all it takes for Ridley to be superior is 2 games. It's disappointing because DJ Moore seemed like a really stand up, I'm getting to work and I'm going to be the wide receiver 1 for Carolina kind of guy. I'm hoping it doesn't set him back too much, because he seems like he's showing all the signs to being a stud for this first year.
We've seen maturity ruin players that are quite talented.
I've drafted quite a few of them, so
that's fair, dog. Tampa Bay rookie running back Ronald Jones, is he good at football?
It certainly doesn't seem like it right now. I think Barber's draft stock might be at its highest for when we draft that it possibly could be. For all we know, we could see a good outing from him still. Although preseason game 4 doesn't matter much for him because we already know he's making the team. Seeing him in that 3rd preseason game could maybe up his stock, and we won't be able to see that. But it's looking really bad for him right now. He's definitely going to fall in our draft. It could be a value, or it could be just further evidence that he's not going to do anything this season or possibly ever.
I mean, he looks really. The good news about him, though, like the same arguments have been made, he's got the easiest path to playing time just about any of the rookies that aren't named Saquon Barkley. So tread carefully on him. Josh Gordon returns to the Browns. Are we drafting him right where we were before that whole weirdness happened?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why. I guess there was a fear factor to it, but I didn't have a doubt that he was going to be back this season. I just think he was doing the right things, and maybe a bit over the top kind of way, but I think it was good for him, and I think he's going to be possibly a stud this season. Really, really interested to see what happens with him this year.
3rd round pick still?
Definitely.
Okay. So we have a couple segments. The first one, which Steve had suggested, will also get him an entry into that first State of the Franchise lottery.
Where are
is
these
going to be
questions, guys?
like to see happen before the draft. And we had a question coming from Carlo before the podcast. What kind of trade would you like to see happen? What kind of wide receiver trade would you like to see Carlo make before the draft?
Ideally, I'd like to see him trade Odell Beckham because I've told him repeatedly that I think it was a terrible decision. He won it all last season, but he didn't do it with Odell Beckham. He could have had a stud running back there, or could have been in a position to draft one this year. So if he could get him off his plate, that'd be amazing. But I don't think anybody's going to. I mean, he is a good player, but it's also a first-round pick. It's going to be a hard thing to get the value you want out of that. So I think he should be looking at possibly trading off Devontae Adams or Keenan Allen for a really high price. The thing is, those are great keepers down there. So if he could find the right trade with a Josh Doxson, I think that'd be probably his best bet.
Out there for a while, Connor. Do you want to start that thought over?
I'm sorry. Basically, I was saying Odell Beckham would be probably not worth the value of the trade. He could possibly look at some kind of a huge trade deal with Julio Jones, kind of like what I did with Freeman in the offseason, where I got Mike Evans back, kind of a big-time player trade. Outside of that, I think the value of Keenan Allen and Devontae Adams is a little bit too great for him to possibly get it. Maybe he's riding high on the Thielen train, or Josh Doxson. Maybe if somebody had some value there. I think if he could get rid of Thielen, Doxson, or a huge mega trade with Julio Jones, those are just three best bets.
Who should be some teams that he could target with a trade like that?
Myself, I'm wide receiver dependent. Possibly if I hadn't traded with Pat already, Julio Jones could have been an option for the right running back. But with that trade already happening, I guess possibly that wouldn't work out. I would say your brother is always looking for wide receivers. He has none right now. I don't know what he could offer besides Leonard Fournette, though. Carlos Hyde could be a trade option, but I don't know if your brother would want to do that either. Joe could be a potential trade option because he doesn't have a real standout wide receiver yet. He has a lot of decent picks. That could be a potential, especially with Deshaun Watson. That could be the Julio trade right there with Deshaun Watson involved. Some kind of package Joe could put together. Those are some top names, I think.
Yeah, definitely a good idea. What are some other trades you think? Pat had asked, who's most likely to trade up in the first round?
Well, honestly, it'd probably be you because you're the trade machine over here. But I would say outside of you, just because you're the most frequent to trade, Steve's always looking for something. I think Steve could potentially have his 11th round or 11th overall pick. He could maybe try to wheel and deal something with that.
If you're AJ, do you say no to number 2 and number 11 for number 1?
That's a great question because that's how much do you love Barkley? And that's exactly what I was thinking when I was saying Steve with 11. I know Steve has already owned Cook. He threw him back for a reason. That's something maybe you should offer him. I don't think that's definitely maybe the number one question going to the pre-draft now. I think that'd be a great offer.
Like I can understand AJ saying no to it. But if he's just like, what, I want Saquon Barkley. I want the best player in the draft on my team this time. Nice offer, but no thanks. I wouldn't chastise him for that, but it wouldn't be the worst. It wouldn't be the worst trade that's ever happened in UML history. Yep. So something to think about there. I wouldn't mind seeing, a team like the Pain Train trade back maybe into the second round, let one of these other teams get a pick, just because Alex is going to miss at least the start of the draft. So stockpiling a few later picks just to move down wouldn't be the worst plan in the world. And then you don't know that you're going to want to keep Amari Cooper next year. And I mean, I don't really want, if I'm Alex, I don't really want to be the one making the decision of who to take at number 4 in this draft. It is rough.
That's right. That's where it gets very difficult.
Yeah. So there's one there. I would say that my biggest one would be Adam needs to trade one of these quarterbacks.
Yep, that was another big bullet I had on my page. Luck is looking really good. The hype's there again. He still hasn't thrown any super deep balls, which is still a question mark. But if the hype's high on Luck right now, try to wheel and deal him.
Yeah.
And otherwise, if people don't want to give up that high of a pick, you've got two other steals at the round that they've been taking quarterbacks that you could get so much value out of.
Yeah, gotta pull the trigger this time. Enough waiting around on that. Teams that could use them. Joe, I'm sure would love to have Marcus Mariota on his team.
Carlo,
Carlo, yeah, would be.
myself.
Yeah, I mean, I would. I don't really need a quarterback, but I would take any of those guys.
Oh yeah,
So
the value is just so good. That's just such a. It's like you just wish you could have it, and he just doesn't offer anything for him.
and it's kind of the thing though. People will pay up for those quarterbacks. They're relatively young. I mean, they're either really young or relatively young in Luck's case, and you know,
I mean, outside of Garoppolo, Carson Wentz might be one of the best valued quarterbacks in our league. You could get
yeah,
some major players for that. For
yeah.
a team that doesn't have a shot.
Now that might not be a pre-draft trade. That might be an after-draft trade, just to
Yeah.
maybe make the keepers work out a little bit better for people. That might be what ends up happening. But Adam should not leave the draft with all three of those guys on his team, or at least without having had some serious discussions. So Connor, you had proposed a segment for yourself. You had proposed a segment yourself before the podcast. You want to tell the guys a little bit about it?
Basically, I thought a cool thing we could do is kind of look at what's the best player you can get with that first pick of yours for everyone. And my dad being in the fourth or fifth round to AJ with the first pick. What is your ideal dream situation? Who's the guy that on draft day, if this guy falls to you, is going to be like a slap in the face for the best reason?
And it has to be plausible, right? Am I?
Yeah. It's got to be believable. I mean, obviously, you could say for everyone, Barkley falling to you is the ideal situation, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, so, this is just for your first selection.
Yeah, it's just basically in a realistic view, who's that guy that's going to be there that you're going to go, sweet, he fell to me.
Yeah, it's got to be plausible. Do you want to start off with AJ here at number one?
Yeah, I think AJ in a best case scenario needs to not read into Barkley having hamstring issues or whatever. It's some kind of leg strain more than a hamstring, I think. But he needs to just ignore that information. Barkley is going to be the face of his franchise for years to come, like I have with Elliott. He needs to just know that he got a stud. He won the first pick tournament for a reason, and it's to draft this guy. So Barkley is his dream scenario, obviously.
I would say AJ's dream scenario is that somebody offers him a ridiculous trade for that number one pick. But I'm not sure that that's the exact world we live in. But yeah, I think if we're staying in the picks for the purpose of this exercise, I think Saquon Barkley answer. Steve comes at number two, and I would say it's the same answer. Saquon Barkley. If AJ decides foolishly, in my opinion, to go for Dalvin Cook or redraft Christian McCaffrey or whatever.
He's an Eagles fan, so being an Eagles fan, maybe he has some hate for the Giants, but I think he'd be stupid to do that.
Yeah, that I think is the best case scenario for Steve. Do you have any problem with that?
No, I totally agree.
What about for Nate at number three?
Nate's best outcome would be that scenario with AJ taking Cook over Barkley, AJ. No, I guess it's literally just whoever those two don't pick. Nate doesn't really have the best outcome. It's literally all mathematics. It'd either be McCaffrey or Cook.
Yeah, Nate, enjoy your Christian McCaffrey. That's who you're getting at number three. It's not even like the first three has been really boring this whole time. We've been knowing who's going. Alex gets on number four, and I guess the best case scenario is that maybe Nate takes AJ Green or something, and Alex has the opportunity to take whatever running back falls.
Yep, I would say probably McCaffrey or just the known quantity out of those three, Joe Mixon. I think if you were to have Green Green were taken and McCaffrey were there, that would be the dream outcome. But with Mixon there, that may be the best choice outside of that.
So Mixon, if everything goes the way we've been expecting it to for months. So with Mixon off the board, the Rabbit College Rampage come up at number 5. And this is a not very enviable place to be in. is the best case scenario that Mixon's here? Like, what's the best case scenario here?
I actually have for Alex, Doug Sr., and yourself, Joe Mixon is all of your best outcomes. This is where it gets very kind of these three picks might define the way the draft goes, because if Alex or you were to go with AJ Green, that could change the landscape quickly. Whereas if Alex were to go with Joe Mixon, suddenly it's just what's the best running back available? I got to hurry up. Or like again with your case, you then probably take AJ Green with Joe Mixon gone. So my best outcome for all three of you is Joe Mixon.
Okay, so 4, 5, 6. So basically, for me and for my dad, Alex picks a rookie that he likes or whatever, and then Joe Mixon falls.
Mm-hmm.
So your team, Joe Mixon, is the 4th best running back in this draft.
I suppose.
So Pat's sitting there at number 7. You got to figure Joe Mixon's not going to make it past 4, 5, and 6. What's Pat's best case scenario?
I think Pat's best case scenario is Collins. I think Collins makes so much sense for him there. And I think not only is it his best scenario, but there's a real strong shot that happens. So that's definitely his dream. I think it fits his team perfectly with the addition of Devonta Freeman and that kind of young, kind of questionable talent in Mac. He needs that rock steady guy. I think Collins would be the dream pick for him there.
For sure. Carlo comes up at pick number 8. Is his best case scenario Alex Collins as well? Like that, yep. Pat takes a rookie and.
Yeah, I think Collins as well. Maybe Tom Brady, just if he really wants to get that quarterback solved. But I think Collins is the guy he's looking for.
Okay. Your first pick is number 9. And I think the best case scenario for you here is that everyone takes running backs and you get AJ Green.
I can not confirm nor deny that statement.
Oh, geez, the guy that doesn't have a 3rd starting wide receiver, and there's a top 10 guy on the board, and he picks number 9. And gee whiz, Huckleberry, you are such a sleuth. Let's see here. Ray comes up at number 12. You got all of the established running backs. AJ Green are all going to be off the board. What's Ray's best case scenario?
I think Ray's going to love to see. Well, actually, you skipped Steve.
No, Steve's first pick was 2nd.
Oh yeah, so. For Ray, he needs to hope that Steve doesn't go with the top prospect at running back. I think Ray, with the fall of the rookie running backs, a lot of people are going to be searching for those veterans like Collins, and with Joe Mixon, I wouldn't call him a veteran, but Joe Mixon. I could see Freeman here, or maybe a Kerryon Johnson, something young for Ray, but can still help him compete for this year because his team's ready. I think that would be a great addition. I think that's the perfect outcome for Ray. He needs to hope that nobody snatches up one of those young talents too early.
Whichever one he likes.
Yeah.
For his
or Michelle or whoever.
Right. Joe makes his pick at 13. That's his first pick, acquired in trade with me. Joe needs some help running back, or probably 2 or 3 of them. He needs a receiver. He needs a quarterback. What's his best case scenario?
I think he's similar to Ray for the opposite reason. He's rebuilding. He needs young talent. He's going to get whatever. With Steve and Ray there, he may get the worst of the 3 rookie backs that are probably in the highest appeal, but he's going to get one of them at least. I don't think he's going to be hoping for Collins to fall there. That's not going to help him at all because within a year it's going to be worthless, possibly. But I think getting that young talent there is exactly what he needs, and he's looking like he might actually have a shot at one of those guys.
Yeah, with the way they've been playing.
Yep.
Let's see here. Tim makes his first pick at number 17.
For Tim, I think he is going to get a little lucky because he still hasn't climbed enough to the extent that I think he should. I think Chris Carson here would be a really great value for him. He could be a possible start for the year. Or vice versa, Penny could still be here. I think he could get whatever Seattle's running back he believes in more, and it will help his team and give him some future potential as well.
Yeah, I think and I bet one of those Seahawks running backs is on the board at 17. I don't know which one, but for what it's worth, everyone acts like Chris Carson is so old. And he was a rookie last year.
Yeah.
So for what that's worth. Chris Carson. I want to see how his age compared to Rashad Penny. Uh, the next first pick, I believe, is
only one left is Kevin.
No, there's Adam at number 20.
Oh yeah, Adam too. For Adam, the poor guy, it gets rough here, and I think honestly the best case scenario for him may be to just ignore running back at that point, grab a guy like. It's hard. He might just have to settle for the talent of Isaiah Crowell. Maybe he could get a decent wide receiver here. Maybe go young if there's a potential that Corey Davis could fall that far. He may have to settle for something he doesn't exactly want for the makeup of his team for the future, but there's definite value there to be had. I think he's probably the most begrudged and lackluster first pick out of everyone.
Yeah, best player available in my opinion here.
Yeah.
Just whoever it is, just take the person. The big takeaway for Adam in this draft is going to be trading these quarterbacks finally and getting something of value to help build this team. Get some extra draft picks, trade for, that young receiver that, Ray didn't want to give up or whomever to get that, to get one of these guys off your team, clear up a draft pick. And honestly, I've said before on the show, I don't think Adam's going to win the league this year unless some crazy shit happens. Maybe trade Melvin Gordon too. I'm not sure Melvin Gordon's going to be on this team the next time it makes a deep playoff run. So
yeah.
Let's see here, and this is the last one. Number 27.
Yep, at 27. For me, I wrote down. I kind of gave possible outcomes because it's so far down.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Anderson, Bernard, Barber were there, or if any of the rookies fall that far, I don't think that'll happen, but it could. Maybe Jones will be there. I think if he could get his hands on Anderson, Bernard, or Barber, that's a win for where he's drafting first. And I think that's totally at least 2 out of the 3 for sure. What Anderson would be probably the steal for him there. I think that'd be a huge addition for him, the perfect player that he needs to go with the rest of his running backs.
Yeah, I seriously doubt he's there at 27. But if some guys take these rookie quarterbacks a little earlier than we expect, you could see it happen. And speaking of rookie quarterbacks, that's what we call a segue. You had a rookie quarterback segment as well. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, just basically kind of read where all these quarterbacks are in terms of playing time. We've seen a lot of news on Sam Darnold and Josh Allen recently, and it seems like in almost for some of them unlikely circumstance, they're going to be playing sooner rather than later. I know a lot of reports with Josh Allen were that they wanted to sit him for a long time, and that seems to be not the case now. A.J. McCarron is strangely back from his injury, which I think is just further evidence that they wanted an excuse to throw Allen in sooner. I think they're not thrilled with Peterman and they're not thrilled with McCarron. So I think they're really excited to throw Josh Allen out there. And then with Sam Darnold, they seem totally ready. I mean, if they're going to have him already pretty much seem to be a lock over Bridgewater when Bridgewater's played so well in this preseason, it seems like those two are going to start at an earlier pace than the other quarterbacks. Doug, what other quarterbacks do you see starting sooner rather than later, or starting later than you thought?
Well, I think the big one for me, and since you didn't touch on it, I'll touch on it. Baker Mayfield is not going to start until the Browns start losing. If Tyrod Taylor is better than he is right now, and that's or Tyrod, or I guess there was that whole thing.
He came out saying it's Tyrod instead. Even
his mom calls him Ty, though. I'm really confused. I don't know. I think maybe they're trolling. But we've played our little game in the past of what holiday do you expect the guy to start by? Baker Mayfield. I think I said Columbus Day before. I'm going to push that back to Halloween. We'll see him for probably about half the season, I think. And Tyrod Taylor is he's a caretaker type player. He's not the type that's going to get benched for no reason, unless it's to get Nathan Peterman out there, obviously. But Mayfield, Josh Rosen looks good for what it's worth. The problem is, similar to Mayfield's, is that Sam Bradford is a decent NFL player.
Yeah, but Bradford, you just watch him play, and it's like you look like you're ready to get hurt. Like he just looks so feeble. I'm just waiting for. It's not going to take long. I don't think. I think it'll be week 5, week 6. He's going to go down.
So that's what. That's week 5. That's like Columbus Day then.
Yeah. Honestly,
I think it'll be sooner than that.
You think he'll go down before then?
I think.
I don't disagree.
I think Bradford will have like a minor injury, and they'll just hold him out when they're sitting 0-2.
I mean,
so
the big thing with that
3.
competition is they both look the same when they're playing. Like you couldn't, like if you took off their names off the back of their shirts, you'd be okay with starting either of them. So I think if there's even the smallest thing with Bradford, it's going to be Rosen's game.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. I think Darnold and Allen we're both going to see week 1.
Yeah.
We might get a weird kind of Deshaun Watson situation where they play like the first guy plays for like a half, and the coach is like, "All right, well that's enough of that." But I see Labor Day, I guess, would be the closest holiday for those. They're both gonna start week 1. What about Lamar Jackson? He looks a long way off from taking that job.
Yeah. I watched him the other night actually, and he's going to take some time. I think he does have potential to technically play sooner than a couple quarterbacks just because of a different package they run on the offense.
Sure,
but in terms of starting, I don't see him starting this year, period, at all.
Barring injury, obviously.
Yeah. And even then, I think RG3 could possibly be thrown in first.
He hasn't looked too bad for what
I really think RG3 may be the next guy up if Flacco were to go down.
Like, and that would also kind of depend on where when does Flacco get hurt, right?
And what's the record for the team?
Yeah. If they're like 1-0 and he separates his shoulder or something, you may see RG3.
Mm-hmm.
If they're 3-7, you'll probably see Lamar Jackson. I'll say like Christmas. I think you could see him maybe starting a game towards the end of the last season, similar to the way that Patrick Mahomes did last year.
Mm-hmm.
But Patrick Mahomes was considered raw, and Lamar Jackson's a lot more raw than he is.
Oh yeah,
or he was, I should say. So that's that. It's really hard to tell you where to draft these in our league. Basically, just keep track of where your next pick is. If you're sitting there at like 15 or 14 or something like that, and your next pick's not till like 35, think about it. Don't do it, but think about it. Just very, very dicey territory because, once one goes, the rest go. Like, I think last year, Watson, Mahomes, Trubisky all went within like 8 picks of each other. Something like that. So bear that in mind. Does anybody have any questions? I see we have a couple of viewers.
Got to get into that state of the franchise lottery here. Come on, guys.
That's right.
Anybody, even on your own team, you got up the floor right now for us to answer questions, what you're feeling about your team. Is there something you're worried about? Is there a concern? We can answer it.
No questions. How rude.
Well, Doug, do you want to kind of break down certain rosters, or what do you think now?
I don't know. I think this is a short podcast, huh?
Yeah, is this it?
That could be it. I mean, I'd like to see AJ focus pretty hard on running back. I know he has some other needs, but the way you win in this league, unless you're Carlo last year, is with running back depth. So,
and he's got 5 straight picks for his. He's got 5 rounds in a row, and he's going to get somebody that's going to stick with those 5.
Yeah, really just think about like getting good players on your team because some of your depth it sucks. Other news today was former Giants wide receiver Victor Cruz officially announced his retirement. I think that was a while ago by everybody else, but great player. He's actually, if you remember, in our second year of this league, we did a 18th round for the first time where you had to draft a rookie. And every time you started the rookie, his keeper value, like he went up your draft board by one.
Uh-huh.
And Victor Cruz was drafted that year by Jim in the 18th round. And he got hurt, if you recall. And then Jim kept him anyway. And then he had a great player in the 18th round for a few years. Another one of those players was Eric Decker, was drafted by Josh at the time. And he's still on that team in the 18th round, hanging on for dear life. It's probably the last year, unless he has a good season.
What about Hilton? Was that the same year too?
No, that was 2 years later.
2 years later.
Yeah.
Dang, Hilton is not as old as I thought.
Another one of those players was Rob Gronkowski, who ended up starting every week for Logan that season. He's been traded around a couple times, but he started, I think, 12 games, because obviously there was a bye, but he started 12 games, and then so he ended up in the 6th round. Still great value, but that was one of the only ones, and I don't think there's literally any other ones on here. Yeah, no, there's not. So that was kind of a fun thing that we did back then. Guys, we are 4 days away from the draft. Connor, is there anything you want to touch on before we wrap her up?
Come prepared. I see people come every year and they're like running around to other people's sheets. Like, what's your ranking say? Like, bring your own rank. That's something I've always noticed. Like, it's okay to like come over and be like, what do you think of these 2 picks? But like, I feel like there's a lot of like shared sheets going on, and you should have your own pre-made, or even just going on like a website and printing out your own thing. I know you're going to be printing out as part of the package in the folders everyone gets. You're going to be printing out the players, but it's alphabetical. You said, right?
Yeah, it's alphabetical because I didn't want to. I did it one year where I did it the way I would rank it, and it just did not work out for me.
Yeah.
Shocker.
So I mean, like, just bring something,
Yeah, I mean, I know I shit talked to the magazines on the previous podcast, but they do a good job of centralizing all the information in one spot. It's tangible. You can flip through the pages. There's not going to be stickers this year to flip through, and Katie's not going to change the screen on the draft board for your reference. So that's a really good one. Come prepared. Like, we'll have pens, we'll have plenty of paper and stuff like that. Don't worry about any of that stuff. But if you want something ranked, do it yourself. Also, please note that Joe will be teleconferencing in, so we're going to try to limit Wi-Fi usage. What little Wi-Fi signal there is at my parents' house in the middle of nowhere. But Joe will be set up on a little stand on a tablet, and I'll have some headphones next there, so you can have a private conversation with him if you want to talk a trade or something. Cool. There's that. Please arrive by 4 p.m. so we can get started with all the muckety-muck stuff before the first pick. We did move the draft back an hour from its original start time because 3 or 4 guys had some conflicts with getting there on time, and you don't want to miss your first pick and then do the rest of it. So come on time, come prepared, have a ride home, and have fun, man. Should be a hell of a time. Anything you want to add before we sign off here, Connor?
I guess not. Last call for questions.
Last call for questions.
2, 1. Well, that's it then.
I wish UML chat told you that it was if someone was typing or not. There's a little bit of delay. Anyway, guys, 4 days. We'll see you at 4 p.m. at Doug Senior's house. If you need directions, if you have any questions. Oh, there we go. Steve.
Oh, we got one.
Are any of my wide receivers wide receiver ones? Let's see here. We've got.
It's close. He's got a couple guys that could be.
No, for me, it's one guy that could be Brandon Cooks, and I think the answer is no, Steve. In terms of top 14 finish, I don't think so. Brandon Cooks will probably come the closest. If Allen Robinson recaptures, what was it, 2015 Allen Robinson, then yes.
That was the other guy I was thinking of.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe if there's an injury to Antonio Brown, you could have one in Juju Smith-Schuster. But
yeah, I don't see Juju.
I mean, you have a good receiving group. I just don't see any of them as like a number one guy.
There's nothing wrong with a group of twos,
Yeah, absolutely. All right. If there's no other questions, Steve, by the way, has half of the picks in this, or half the lottery tickets in this first state of the franchise. So, anyway, guys, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. We will see you on Saturday at 4 p.m. Definitely wear your UML shirts or like a team jersey if you've got it. It's always fun. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Konnichiwa, bitches.